mathematicians, thinkers have described scientific temper either explicitly or implicitly without actually using the term. And I am using, I'm taking the gist or the essence and putting it down here. It is a mind that is involved in continuous questioning and is free of prejudice and irrationality. It involves healthy skepticism, evidence-based reasoning. I would say evidence-based reasoning and conclusion forming. So we form our conclusions also based on evidence, and open to new ideas. Accepting newer methods of knowledge creation when necessary. So if we are doing our work along a certain path and using certain methodologies, if there are new methods being suggested, that openness to listen to it and see what relevance it has. And then finally, and that is the very important one, the final one, is acknowledging that one's own views may need to change based on evidence. And this is something that is known in the scientific community, and they know that they do abide by it. And that's why knowledge itself constantly keeps evolving, adapting, because when new evidence places itself, then the knowledge base is tweaked and enhanced, etc. So scientific temper has played an important role in the Indian National Education Policy 2020. Also, our first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, has spoken about this explicitly in his book, The Discovery of India. And actually, it also gets mentioned in our constitution. So for us Indians, it is a very important construct. Coming now to this slide, where I have just taken single words to capture scientific temper. I will only briefly talk about the ones that I have not yet covered. So perseverance is one. We know that perseverance is hard work, but it is also hard work not getting bowed down by mistakes or setbacks. So the ability to look at a setback as preparation time, maybe for a comeback. So that resilience and perseverance with resilience is something that is a very important aspect of scientific temper. And this is something we actually see in a lot of the great scientists and inventors, thinkers. Here I just want to share a couple of quotes. One quote that is attributed to Thomas Edison, and it may not be the exact words, but in a sense, the quote says that it is not that I have failed 100 times. I have only found 100 different ways in which it does not work. So can you see the mind of this man? He was looking at that number 100 may have been something else, but he is looking at the many different ways in which something did not work for him as a success. He's not looking at it as a failure at all. Another quote that is attributed to Einstein is the following. Again, the essence of it is that it says the following: it is not that I am smarter, it is just that I stay with problems longer. Again, I find this an amazing quote actually, because of course it shows the perseverance and it shows the fact that against all odds he was working on his problems, but there is also a humility underneath this. And humility is not something I have mentioned here in all these one-word descriptions, but humility is a precursor, I would say, or prerequisite, I would say, for this open-mindedness that I have down here. Because unless we have humility, we will not even be willing to listen to another person, be open-minded to listen to another person. So it is definitely built into this whole framework of scientific temper. All the others I have already spoken about. I will just touch upon integrity in reporting a bit. So in this scientific temper, we are going to make decisions or conclusions based on evidence. And so this evidence gathering process involves getting data. The integrity in reporting means that we should not cherry pick data. We should take the data in its entirety and see what it is saying about whatever we are studying, right? The subject at hand. We are all human beings. There would be some biases, some inclinations within us, but it is definitely important that when exercising scientific temper, we look at all the data and don't only pick the data that might suit some particular narrative. And that integrity in reporting is also very important in scientific temper. We have discussed all the others, so let's go ahead. So this is the scientific temper mindset, attitudes, and it involves certain skills closely associated to it and needed for us to actually exercise it. Here, what I have around as skills are also sometimes referred to as the science process skills, because the process by which science is done. When you look at inquiry and observation, I would look at it together, because either there is inquiry first and then we observe, or there is observation and then we inquire based on the observation. Here, when I'm talking about observation, it is observation through all our five senses, not just visual. So very often we tend to think of observation only as visual, but I would include all observation here through all our five senses. And once that observation and inquiry comes in, there is a hypothesizing, which then has to be tested. So that testing process is where we have to design experiments, conduct experiments, construct surveys, collect data. So this is, and observation may also come here. So when we are testing, there's experimentation, there could be observation, collecting data through surveys, etc. And this is all the data collection or evidence collection process, the part where we are trying to get evidence. And once we get that data, there is the skill of data analysis, because you have to interpret the data. And so based on if the data is a lot of numbers, then you do data visualization and then data interpretation. And that gives us our final story, or tells us what it is that we can conclude. And that has to be communicated. And here, if you see, since there is communication, it ties in with that integrity in reporting that we were talking about just a minute ago. This communication has to have integrity in its reporting, because it has to place the data in its entirety, whatever the data is actually telling us about that subject at hand. So these are the skills that are required, and that will help us to exercise our scientific temper. So I was at a panel discussion some time back on scientific temper, and one of the teachers asked me about scientific temper and science to compare. So I thought I will add this slide. Scientific temper is a mindset, as we saw, an attitude needed to understand the world around us, and it uses those skills. Science is the pursuit and the body of knowledge that is obtained as a result of that scientific process. Again, that same process is used of hypothesizing and testing it, getting the data and analyzing and coming to conclusions. One can have scientific temper without being a scientist. So you don't need to be a scientist, even though that word is so closely, as I said right at the beginning, it is so closely associated with science. You don't have to be a scientist in order to have scientific temper. One can have scientific temper without being a scientist. So